All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're tackling something pretty fascinating, the art world and how it's being transformed by, well, you guessed it, social media. You sent over a video script with some great visuals and interviews with artists, and wow, there's a lot to unpack here. Way more than just like Instagram being a virtual gallery.
Yeah, it's really blown wide open.
Yeah.
What jumped out at me was how the script uses the Beeple sale, that $69 million NFT, to kind of show how things are getting flipped around.
Right, right. I vaguely remember that being all over the news. To be honest, though, I didn't really get what the big fuss was all about.
It was a huge GE deal. I mean, not just for the art world. Suddenly, digital art was fetching crazy prices, and it was all happening outside the usual, galleries and auction houses.
So it's not just artists connecting with buyers directly online, but like what we even consider valuable art is changing.
Totally. And the script brings up how this is creating some serious tension. You've got collectors, critics who are like, NFTs are a fad, a bubble. But then others see it as the future, a way to make art ownership more democratic, put power in the hands of artists.
It's like we're watching a showdown in real time, right there on our feeds, the old guard versus the new wave. Were there any specific platforms that the script highlighted, like where artists are really pushing the boundaries?
Definitely. Instagram's still huge for visual artists, but the script spends some time on TikTok, how it's attracting a whole new generation, pushing the limits of format and, well, how interactive art can be.
You know, I hadn't really thought of TikTok that way, but it makes sense. It's all about that short, attention-grabbing stuff, which, let's face it, is how we consume art online now. Do you think that's actually affecting the kind of art that gets made?
The script argues that it does. It's a fascinating point. One artist talked about how the TikTok algorithm rewards quick cuts, visual punchlines, So artists are adapting their style to fit. It's like this feedback loop between the tech and the art itself.
So artists are almost having to think like programmers, trying to figure out how to game the algorithm.
You got it. And that opens up some tricky ethical questions, right? Like
Yeah.
artistic integrity versus needing those likes and views. Can you really be authentic when you're constantly thinking about the algorithm?
Yeah, that's a whole other layer on top of everything else artists are dealing with these days.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of layers,
Mhm.
one thing that resonated with me from the script was how social media messes with an artist's sense of self.
Okay, I'm curious. How so?
Well, think about it. The traditional artist, they'd be in their studio, honing their craft, developing their style, but now there's this constant barrage of feedback, good and bad, all the time,
And for someone who's just starting out, still figuring out who they are as an artist, that could be overwhelming.
for sure. The script uses this metaphor, an artist's online presence being like a second self, a curated persona that might not actually match their true artistic vision.
It makes you wonder if that pressure to keep up a certain image, fit in with trends, play the algorithm game, if that ends up stifling creativity.
It's a central question that this script wrestles with. And honestly, I think every artist working in the digital space has to confront it.
So we've got this incredible potential for change, for making art more accessible, more innovative. But we also have this worry about algorithms, the pressure to build an online persona. It sounds like artists are walking a tightrope.
A tightrope is a great way to put it.
Hmm.
And that leads us to another fascinating thing the script digs into, how online communities are shaping artistic styles and even sparking whole new art movements.
Ooh, this is where it gets really interesting.
Right. The script goes beyond just mentioning things like hashtag Inktober and actually looks at how these communities online cultivate specific aesthetics, techniques even.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. There's this online community obsessed with this super specific, hyper-realistic style of digital portraiture. It's almost like a modern take on Renaissance painting, but with a digital twist.
So are you saying these online communities are like incubators for new art movements that wouldn't exist without social media?
That's exactly what the script's suggesting. And it
Hmm.
brings up a really interesting question. Are these movements as legitimate as those that came out of traditional institutions? Or are they something completely new, unique to the digital age?
I wonder what the curator from the video would say about that.
Well, the script tackles that head on, actually. The curator, who's known for discovering new artists online, argues that these online movements are just as valid, maybe even more so, because they're fueled by genuine passion, a shared vision.
So it's not about where the movement starts, but the intention behind it, the community driving it.
Exactly. And the script points out that these online communities often provide support and mentorship, things that can be hard to find in the traditional art world.
It makes you think, Are these communities leveling the playing field in some ways? Giving artists who might not have access to, like, fancy art schools or galleries, a chance to connect, learn, and grow together?
That's a powerful thought. And the script really explores it. It's not just about showcasing work, it's about building a community, sharing knowledge, and supporting each other's creative journeys.
And this is all happening outside the traditional gatekeepers, right? The galleries, the critics, the institutions that used to hold all the power.
It's a real power shift,
Uh-huh.
and it's fascinating to watch unfold. But speaking of those traditional institutions, let's not forget about them completely. The script touches on how galleries and museums are adapting to this new digital landscape, too.
So it's not just about artists and online communities, but how the whole art ecosystem is changing.
Exactly. And the script emphasizes that it's not always a smooth transition. There's a lot of tension between the old ways of doing things and the new possibilities that social media offers.
It's probably like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Perfect analogy. One of the big challenges the script highlights is how galleries and museums are trying to balance their physical spaces with their online presence.
So it's not just about making a website or posting on Instagram. It's about figuring out how to integrate the digital and the physical in a way that makes the art experience even better.
You got it.
Yeah.
And the script gives some really cool examples. Some museums are using augmented reality to add digital information on top of physical artwork, while others are creating virtual tours so people can experience exhibitions from anywhere in the world.
Those are some really neat examples. So even though social media is pushing art online, there's still this desire to connect with it in a physical space.
For sure. And the script argues that both the physical and the digital have their strengths and weaknesses. It's not about picking one over the other, but finding a way to blend them in a way that benefits both the artist and the viewer.
It sounds like the art world is in this really exciting, kind of chaotic phase right now.
Yeah.
Lots of experimentation and change.
Definitely.
Mm.
And the script doesn't shy away from the challenges and complexities, but it also highlights the incredible potential of social media to make art more democratic, to create new communities, and to push the boundaries of what art can even be.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation already, and we've only just scratched the surface. Let's take a quick break and then come back to explore how all of this is impacting the art market itself. All right, so we've talked about how social media is changing things up in the art world, how art is made, the whole community aspect, even what we think of as art in the first place. But what about the money side of things? How's social media messing with the art market?
Ah, that's the big question, and the script really digs into it. It basically says that the traditional art market, with its like exclusive galleries, those crazy expensive auctions, and all the behind closed doors stuff, it's feeling the pressure.
Yeah, you can definitely see things shifting. Artists are selling their work right on Instagram, cutting out the middleman. Plus, there are all these new online marketplaces popping up specifically for art and, of course, NFTs.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just individual sales. The script talks about how social media is changing the whole marketing and promotion game for art. You see galleries using TikTok now, giving these behind-the-scenes peeks at their exhibitions, almost like movie trailers.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. It makes art feel less, I don't know, intimidating. Less like something only rich people can be a part of.
That's it. Accessibility is a big theme in the script. It argues that social media could really break down those traditional barriers, not just for artists, but for collectors too.
Meaning someone who might have been intimidated walking into a fancy gallery can now discover art, even buy it, all online.
Precisely. The script highlights how this opens things up for a wider audience, especially younger people who are already used to buying everything online.
That makes sense. But what about the old school institutions, like auction houses? Are they becoming obsolete?
Not really. The script describes how auction houses are adapting. They're adding online bidding, even hosting virtual auctions. They're realizing they got to go where the collectors are, and these days, that's online.
So it's not about replacing the old system, but finding ways to, blend the old with the new.
You got it. It's creating this hybrid model where the physical and the digital are all mixed up together.
But with all this talk about accessibility, making art more democratic, is there a downside? Could the art market become even more unpredictable, more speculative?
That's a real concern, and the script addresses it. It points out that while social media can bring more transparency, it can also fuel hype and speculation. Trends can appear and vanish overnight, and it's easier for false information to spread.
So it's like the stock market, where everyone's talking about something online and suddenly the price skyrockets, even if it's not really worth that much.
Perfect analogy.
Hmm.
The script warns against blindly following trends or, investing in art just because it's blowing up on social media. Do your research, talk to experts, and think about your long-term goals. That's the advice.
So just because something's going viral doesn't mean it's a smart investment.
Right. And that brings us to another important point the script brings up: authenticity. How can you be sure what you're buying is the real deal, especially in the digital world?
That's something I've been thinking about. With so much art online, how do you know it's not a fake?
It's a huge challenge. The script explores how technology, specifically blockchain, can help. NFTs, for example, act as a digital certificate of authenticity. It's tamper-proof and traceable.
So technology creates the problem and then offers a solution.
Exactly. It's like this constant back and forth between those trying to trick people and those trying to verify the truth.
So we need to be smart, educate ourselves. Just because something looks real online doesn't mean it is.
Absolutely. The script encourages collectors to be careful, ask questions, make sure the art is authentic before spending any big money.
It sounds like navigating the art market these days requires a whole new skill set.
It does. And it's not just for collectors. Artists need to be smart too, protect their work, and understand how these online platforms work.
So social media opens up amazing new opportunities, but it also brings new challenges that we have to think carefully about.
You nailed it. And that leads us to another fascinating aspect the script explores: how social media is changing the very nature of artistic expression itself.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean?
Well, think about it. Traditionally, artists had to work within certain limitations, like the materials they could use, what galleries and patrons expected from them.
Are you saying that social media is removing some of those limitations, allowing artists to be more experimental?
Exactly. The script highlights how this is leading to all these new art forms, hybrid experiences that blend the physical and digital worlds.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, there's this one artist in the script who creates these interactive installations. The art actually reacts to the viewer's movements and emotions. It's like a combination of sculpture, performance art, and technology all in one.
Wow, that sounds incredible. So it's not just about creating digital art that lives online, but about using technology to enhance art in the real world.
Precisely. And the script argues that this blurring of lines between physical and digital is one of the most exciting and game-changing trends in art today.
It makes you think, what will happen to art galleries and museums? Will they disappear, or will they have to adapt to these new forms of art?
The script leaves that question open, but it hints at some really interesting possibilities. Imagine galleries that are both physical spaces and online hubs, where you can experience art in multiple dimensions.
That's a cool idea, and it goes back to accessibility, right? Social media isn't just opening up the art market, it's expanding our definition of what art can be and where we can experience it.
Absolutely. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I think it's important to remember that this is just the beginning. Social media's impact on art is still evolving, and it's going to keep surprising us, challenging us for years to come.
Okay, so before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to that idea of social media being a double-edged sword for artists. Okay, so we spent a lot of time talking about all the amazing things social media can do for artists, like help them reach a wider audience, build those communities we were talking about, even challenge the traditional art market. But the script also points out that there's a flip side, right? All these pressures that come with this new world.
It's a classic double-edged sword thing. The same tools that can be so empowering can also create a whole new set of worries and expectations for artists.
Yeah, the script uses this phrase, algorithmic anxiety, and it really hit home for me. It's like artists are constantly questioning themselves, like, is my work trendy enough? Is it shareable enough? Will it even get noticed in the never-ending scroll of social media?
And it goes deeper than just getting seen, right? The script talks about how these algorithms can actually influence the choices an artist makes, sometimes even pushing them away from what feels true to them.
Like that story in the script about the painter who started doing these super realistic, Instagram perfect still lifes. They got way more likes than her more abstract personal work, and she ended up feeling like she was creating for the algorithm, not for herself.
It's a really sad example of how chasing online validation can actually hurt an artist's integrity. It's a trap that's easy to fall into, especially when you're just starting out and trying to build a following.
It makes you think, how can artists balance staying true to themselves with, using social media to reach their goals?
That's the question, isn't it? And the script offers some interesting ideas. One artist talked about the importance of setting boundaries, like making time to create work just for themselves, No pressure to share it online.
It's like a digital version of an artist going to their studio, shutting out the world, and just creating for the pure joy of it.
Exactly. And the script also talks about how crucial it is to find a supportive online community, a place where artists can share their work, get feedback, and encourage each other, but without that pressure to go viral or obsess over likes.
It's funny, we keep coming back to community, both online and offline. It seems like that's a key factor for artists navigating this digital world.
I think you're right. And it's not just about having a shoulder to cry on. The script points out that these communities can also advocate for ethical practices, like fair pay and, pushing back against those exploitative algorithms.
So it's about artists coming together, using their collective power to make the art world fairer, more sustainable, even as technology keeps changing things up.
Exactly. And that brings us to something else that's really thought-provoking in the script. The vision it paints for the future of art in this age of social media.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of future are we talking about here?
Well, it's not all sunshine and roses. The script acknowledges the potential for social media to turn art into just another commodity, something to be bought and sold, just another piece of content.
That's a scary thought. A future where art is basically ruled by algorithms, where artists are just churning out stuff to chase trends and get clicks.
But the script doesn't leave us on a downer. It also highlights all the ways social media could connect people with art in ways that were never possible before.
Yeah, like those virtual museum tours we were talking about, online artist talks, interactive installations that let people all over the world experience art in these amazing new ways.
Exactly. The script imagines a future where art is more accessible, more diverse, and more interactive than ever. It sees social media, when used thoughtfully, as a way to boost voices that have been silenced, break down geographical barriers, and create a more inclusive and vibrant art world.
A world where art isn't just something you look at, but something you experience, share, maybe even help create.
It's a powerful idea, and it challenges us to think about how we can use social media to support artists, to have those meaningful encounters with art, and to create a future where creativity thrives, both online and in the real world.
Wow, this deep dive has been quite the journey. We've explored the highs and lows of social media's impact on art, from how accessible it makes art to the whole algorithmic anxiety thing, from NFTs to how our very experience of art is changing. It's clear this relationship between art and social media is super complex and always in flux.
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder that technology isn't inherently good or bad. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for creative purposes or for not so great ones.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with this. The next time you're scrolling through your feed, take a moment to think about the art you see. Who made it? What are they trying to say? And how is social media affecting your own connection to art?
Those are great questions, and I hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on the ever-changing world of art in this digital age.
Until next time.